What is up, guys? This is another episode of the Basketball Buddies. It was a great weekend of NBA rivals hoops, and we're going to get to all that in a second. But first, we just kind of wanted to do a little bit more of an introduction than we did last time and kind of talk about why we wanted to do this pod. Caden actually got to play college basketball, and so do you want to kind of talk about your basketball career a little bit?
Yeah, obviously played basketball pretty much my whole life. I would describe you and me as basketball sickos. When the NBA isn't on, we're watching FIBA hoops. Like, there's never a point in time where we're not watching basketball or talking about basketball, or paying attention to basketball, and that's kind of just been my whole life. I got the opportunity to play college, was a pretty average college player, good high school player. But I just love the game. I love dissecting the game. I got to play in a lot of different systems, play with a lot of great players, a lot of smart people. And just being able to, like, I feel like I can analyze the game at a pretty decent level. So being able to watch the NBA pretty much full time now that I don't play college basketball anymore is nice. And I feel like you and me have a good talent for actually knowing what we're talking about instead of a lot of the, analysis people, analytic people, and the NBA, ESPN analysts that we see now. So, definitely just want to tap into the market with, the Tim Leglers and, the people that actually know what they're talking about, and be seen as people that can go and rely on us for some good insight maybe.
Right. And that's pretty rare nowadays, right? Is guys that really dissect the film and watch every game and know what they're talking about. It's kind of a rare thing.
Hmm.
Basketball media nowadays has gotten so narrative based and highlight driven. And we just want to be two guys that watch the games and break it down at a little deeper level. And for the fans that want that, we're going to be the guys that will shed a light on that sort of stuff.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it was a great weekend or a great week, really, in NBA hoops. We did, kind of okay in our first couple of picks, but I think we'll do better in this one. So, uh, anyways, Oklahoma City and Dallas played again, Paycom Center. I had the misfortunate, stance to be able to witness that personally once again. Uh, so once like I said, once again, the Dallas Mavericks got the best of us. Great game from I think the Dallas Mavericks top to bottom. You want to talk about Kessler Edwards, Omax Prosper, Spencer Dinwiddie, PJ Washington. Really, just a really collective team effort from
Hmm.
Dallas.
Right.
I think that they knew that Oklahoma City was small going into this game, and they were ferocious attacking the glass. Right. That I think that was one of the big notes I had is just Dallas's size was just too much for us.
Yeah.
Jay Will is a talented offensive player, but he really does struggle defensively.
Hmm.
And for some reason, we didn't see a lot of Brandon Carlson in this game. Only 4 minutes on the night,
Yep.
and so when Jay Will was on the bench, and it was a lot of Wiggins and Kenrich as our biggest guy out there, and that was just not enough to keep Dallas off the glass. What are some of the other things that stuck out about this game for you?
Definitely what I had written down today was, obviously we knew we were shorthanded going into that night. Najee not playing, obviously Luca Lively, a lot of guys were down. Pretty surprised with the Kessler Edwards start on the night. We haven't really seen him in meaningful basketball minutes this year very often. Obviously, with how shorthanded we were, probably was expecting to see him at some point against the Thunder. Actually got the start though, and I thought he played pretty well. 7 points, 4 boards. Great defense on Shea in the first half. Obviously, Shea was getting doubled, throwing some different looks at him, but Kessler did his job. As the 13th, 14th guy on the roster, he went in and played his butt off, and obviously, like, one of the reasons we won. Guarding Shea really well, bringing energy, attack the glass, just everywhere. Another thing that stood out to me, it was Omax Prosper's best basketball game as a Maverick. And, dominant first half from him, all over the glass, running everywhere, playing hard. In games like that, you're going to need players like him. And obviously, he's even, we're going to talk a little bit more about the Mavs later, but he's even more crucial to this team now than he was on Wednesday, or whenever we played this last week.
Yeah.
Very, very good games from Spencer Dinwiddie. Really great fourth quarter from Quentin Grimes. Quentin Grimes, very clutch fourth quarter, two big threes. Some good
Yep.
stops on J-Dub at the end. But Spencer, best game as a Mav too. 11 of 14, 28 points, 3 assists. Like you don't get too many nights like that from a bench guy. Um, that's able to come in, step into a starting role and do stuff like that. So very great Spencer night. And then obviously like PJ Washington is a horrible matchup for the Thunder. Really haven't found Daggs kind of switched some things on him. I feel like early in the playoffs last year, you were kind of leaving him open, making him hit threes. Obviously, was doing that at a pretty high level. Still haven't really found that one guy to kind of limit PJ. And obviously, he comes in with the most confidence ever, a game high plus 15. Really just put his foot on that game, and we know he's going to do that every time he sees the Thunder. So, just talking from the Mavs in that point of view, that was really impressive. Really impressive win for us. And then some questions I had for you about the Thunder. Just curious. I
Hmm.
think you touched on it. Brandon Carlson, only 4 minutes. He was a +6 on the night. Surprisingly, we didn't see him really at all. And then Dylan Jones, team high +13 that night. Um, I thought it was a great Alex Caruso game too. So those were kind of the three things that stuck out to me for the OKC. But I wonder what you have to say about it or what you're thinking about it.
Yeah. Couple things, right? Shea double teamed and blitzed majority of the night, and we didn't really have an answer for it.
How many teams have
One
done that to
time,
y'all? Genuinely, like
um,
I don't feel like
I
it's
would
happened
say
very often.
it happens, but it's not as common as you would think, just because of we usually have the guys that will make you pay.
Mm,
And we have the guys that can make the decision in the pocket there, and really make teams hurt. And a lot of time, and tonight we just didn't have that. And I
mm,
think that was just a lot of times just due to, you know, when it was J Will catching the ball in the pocket, and there were three or four, I don't, if you want to call them floaters, push shots, layups, whatever they were at the basket that he missed. Those were killer. Um,
mm,
it would it would be a kick out late in the fourth to Wiggins or Kenrich, and they just weren't hitting tonight,
mm,
right? That's where you really feel the absence of, I'd say, Hartenstein making decisions in that pocket there, and that's going to be a bucket if he decides to take that shot. Or, I'd say a Joe has always been the best weapon for Shea in those moments, um,
mm,
just to really just a quick pass to him and make the teams pay. Um, I thought the turnover battle really defined the game as well. Um,
mm,
Double teaming Shea before he's even crossed half court turned into a turnover Dallas layup.
mm,
J Dub gets a switch. I can't remember if it's Kleba or Gafford on him, but literally just loses the ball. Like
mm.
uncharacteristic turnovers, I think, defined our night, and just the inability to match up with Dallas's size, I think, really did us in too.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, it wasn't a great Gafford game, especially with how he's been playing lately,
right.
but definitely felt the size presence with PJ getting to the rim and getting to the free throw line. Couldn't stop fouling him, it seemed like all night. Uh, Getting a lot of
Yeah,
looks at the
got to
rim,
the free
getting a
throw
lot of O
line.
boards.
Yep.
19 boards is just speaks for itself with that. He was uber aggressive. He wasn't settling for threes. That's when he's his best. So,
Yeah, there was a sequence, I think it was like third quarter, where PJ goes up to the rim, gets his own rebound, goes up to the rim, gets his own rebound,
mhm,
and finally misses and then gets the rebound. But it's like he still had three chances at the rim, and we still didn't stop it. Like,
right.
even though he didn't score on that possession, it was just like that kind of spoke to kind of define the game, just because that was
Hmm.
his mentality, right? I'm just going
Hmm.
to be 6'9", freak athlete, and just dominate. And
Yep.
that's what he did, and that's what happened. Um, you know, that you, both teams don't. really take too much from this, I think, just with how shorthanded they are. Obviously, this is a mass, both these games, the one in Dallas, before, and the game the other night in Paycom were just massive for Dallas standings wise. Looking at it right now, as of Sunday night, Dallas is 24-22,
Yep.
sitting tied for eighth with Phoenix. And so, I mean, those wins just go such a long way
Mhm.
to make sure that y'all are not in the danger zone of possibly missing the postseason. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like that's a good kind of segue over to kind of the areas for concern now on Sunday, even talking after our game. Obviously, we played the Celtics since then. Not a good game. Obviously, we're missing a ton of guys. Obviously, some injuries happened too, but um, yeah, that's a big thing for us right now is obviously Maxi going down. They said it was an ankle sprain at first. Then, we check the news later. Shams drops the bomb, fractured foot out for 2 months, out indefinitely, probably 2 or 3 months. It's probably the same like Lively. Um, and that kind of speaks to the overall that kind of speaks to the overall problem is I think I tweeted this before every game that we lose from here on out because we don't have another center or another power forward, I put on Nico Harrison personally. I feel like I've been tweeting it out too. This whole time where Lively's been out and obviously Luke has been out, we've just been playing like the reason we lose games is because we just get destroyed in Maxi Kleber center minutes. And I think I touched on this last podcast. The dude is out there just doing cardio. I love him to death. He used to be an insanely valuable piece for us as a stretch five. He just can't do it anymore. Um, Obviously he's been playing horrible. We almost lost that game because of Maxi Kleber minutes. Um, he was terrible. I mean, he's terrible against the Celtics. I think you and me were watching the game and he was like -10 in like 6 minutes of play. It
right.
was astonishing. Um,
Yeah. It was
so it
like,
was
the
surviving.
ball,
Yeah.
yeah, the ball was tipped and you look up and he's minus 15, right? And
Mhm.
even in the Oklahoma City Dallas game, Shea had 15 points in the fourth quarter. And really what got him going was Maxi being on the floor and the lack of rim protection from that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep. It's we've seen the decline for months. For months. Like all Mavericks fans have seen it. It's not something like he's had an occasional good game. Obviously, every NBA player that plays 20 minutes a game is going to have an occasional good game. Like I hope. But Maxi was giving us zero production. We were just surviving the minutes. Like while he was on the court, we were just like, wow, I hope it's like the Shea minutes for you guys. Like it's like when Shea's not on the court, it's like when Kleber's on the court, we're just like, oh, hope we don't go down, like, hope we don't give up a run here. It's
right.
we need we needed him going out does not hurt us necessarily, I think at all, especially with, we're going to talk about our new pickup that we got today, but really just refilling his spot with some production. I know we've talked about Kelly Olynyk is a name that's been thrown out there. Larry Nance. Mavs fans have been wanting Larry Nance for years, or for a couple years at this point. Buy low value right now, coming off hand surgery. Um, and then Jalen Smith was a name that was thrown out there this week since the last pod. He's averaging 8.2 points, 5.4 rebounds in 15 minutes a game for the Bulls on 34% from three. He would be a perfect Maxi replacement. He can come in, play some small ball center. He can come in and play some four in some certain spots and really be effective for us. So really just we lost Maxi for however long, and hopefully we can still trade him or move off of him or get some value for him. But it's really gonna come down to we weren't it wasn't like we were winning minutes with him on the floor. So that injury is not like making us so much worse. It's just mainly now like we got to actually look at some different lineups. I know you talked about Omax center minutes at some point, like PJ Washington
Yeah. I,
center minutes. We're gonna have to see.
I mean, dude, if I see the Omax that played in Paycom last Thursday, I mean, I think that you ought to try it, right? Um,
Mhm. We
just
saw
to
Markieff
see.
Morris on the court. We saw Markieff play his first meaningful minutes in years.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, I don't think we have to touch on it too much. Markeith is not the answer, right?
No, he's not. But I mean, he can't be any worse. Like he can't. Maxi doesn't do
Right.
anything. But that brings me to my kind of my last point about the Mavs tonight is we announced today that we dropped Gortman and we're signing Kyler Kelly. Um, so I think we'll enter some highlights here. Uh, Obviously, Jazz looked promising at first, but he's been kind of pushed back. Brandon Williams been kind of taking his minutes as the fourth or fifth string point guard on the squad. Really, no need for Jazz. We knew that it was probably him that was going to be the one that was going for a two-way big. I know a lot of people wanted Jamarion Sharp. This guy's the guy we need at this stage. He's Kyler Kelly, 27 years old, listing out some of his stats right now. 6.2 points per game, 5.8 rebounds per game, 1.8 assists. He averages 1.7 blocks per game. This guy was the 2023-2024 G League blocks leader. He averaged during that season, guess how many blocks he averaged a game
How
last
much?
season in the G League? 2.9
I don't
a
know.
game.
Oh wow. I was gonna say like
2.9 a
3.
game.
Yeah. That's
He
that's a lot.
he is he's got a 7'3" wingspan too. He's like crazy long, slim. He's built exactly like Chet, honestly. Like he's 7 foot, 7'3" wingspan. He probably weighs 220 pounds. He's a pick and roll big. You'll see in some of the highlights, like this is one of his games. He had some nice little floaters. He had some decent touch around the basket. He's very mobile. He's going to get out and run a transition. He's going to be able to keep up with bigs. You worry with him, the kind of stuff we worry about with Chet and Lively that are little thinner centers. Just you can get bullied by the Jokic's, you can get bullied by the Vucevic's, the Nurkic's, the whoever you're playing on a daily night that has some strength in that spot. With that comes rebounding questions, but um, the kid's solid. He's gonna be good. He's gonna get his opportunity on our team with all these injuries.
Yeah.
And let's be real, like we're not gonna be rolling the ball to him on the block. Like the kid's gonna be setting screens,
Limited.
rolling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very limited, controlled role. Um,
Hmm.
and call me old fashioned, but in basketball today, I'm still partial to a guy that's just gonna play good defense and rebound and play super hard at the center position, right?
I mean, yeah.
Um, at the end of the
The
day, that's still the bread and butter of the center position,
mhm,
and is what the Dallas Mavericks need, quite frankly, and
yeah.
what has been lacking from the three and no D from Maxi Kleba. So
Yeah. And that's the thing. He's at the very least offensively, like this kid's not even a Lively offensively. And we know Lively's not the back to the basket big. He's developing in that area very nicely from his rookie year to this year. But this kid's not going to be hitting post hooks. He's not going to be doing all this. He's strictly going to be a kind of catch and dunk guy. He's shooting 63% from the field this year. Like he's a catch and dunk lob threat. And
mm-hmm.
he was G League all defensive team last year. Like the kid's a stud defensively. He goes and contests shots. Like if he could be half the defender Lively was and just as mobile, he would really find a spot on this depleted Mavs team right now. But it was a good move for Nico to go grab this kid. Obviously, we're gonna put some highlights up of him, and he's got potential in a role around this team and the athleticism and the good passing, especially when Luka gets back. He's gonna have a shot and he's gonna have a shot in the NBA, especially whenever Luka gets back. So pretty excited to see him. I know Mavs fans wanted Jamarion Sharp, but that Mavs fans should be excited about this kid. So
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be excited about, right? Really, just like you said, moving off those Cleveland minutes, finding somebody that's just going to do the little things for this team, I think will go a long way.
mhm.
Even with the limited center rotation that the Celtics have, they still just absolutely had their way in
Mhm.
Cleveland minutes, to be straight up. And, we'll see
Luke
if there's
Cornett was
any
looking like
more.
Kevin McHale on us. He was
Yeah, I
he was
mean,
just
just
working Cleva over.
right. And, Luke Cornett is nothing special in, today's NBA by any means.
Mhm.
So, I,
Yeah.
I'm interested to see like moving forward, like this week for y'all is like a little lighter in terms of
Mhm.
schedule. at least in the beginning part, like
Yeah.
playing Washington on Monday at home, playing Pelicans on Wednesday. I'll be interested to see if this guy gets minutes. I really think
Yeah.
that knowing what J Kidd values out of players and I mean, what he likes out of his center position, quite frankly, from Gafford and Lively, like I could see this guy getting solid minutes, especially against a team like the Wizards. Where you're most likely going to take care of business there. So
Yeah, watching his game film, we know Gafford and Lively is the strictly roll to the rim type of bigs. They don't really short roll very often. If there's blitzing, they're taught to short roll, and that's when you'll see them step up to the free throw line area. This kid, when he sets some wing ball screens, he does like to kind of hover in that around the free throw line area, and he'll shoot the push floater, which we see, you know all about the push floater with Isaiah Hartenstein. He does
yeah,
it the best in the league. He
about to
has some
say that.
touch with that
Yeah,
floater, so it's just maybe a different aspect you can see out of him. Don't be surprised if you see him shoot the occasional push shot. He's had some success with it in the G League, so
yeah. Do you think is this the type of player that's going to be provide any floor spacing, or is that just not really in his game?
nope, zero attempted threes. He's not going to shoot the ball. My biggest worry with him really is we run a lot of kind of dribble handoff actions, and you'll see that with Jason Kidd out of timeouts. 90% of it is kind of this off ball screening action, with the big catching the ball at the elbow area, maybe the elbow extended area to the 3-point line. And with that, teams try to pressure, deny ball handlers. So you'll see, like, we run the same out of bounds play every game at least once, and it's we throw it to the center at the elbow extended, and then we get this double off ball action for Clay coming up, and it's a turnover probably 50% of the time because our bigs just hand it off and the guy runs through the lane or runs through the passing lane and steals it. This guy's going to struggle with keeping the pressure from the center position off him at the perimeter. He needs to get stronger on the perimeter. He's averaging almost 2 turnovers a game right now. So just he doesn't need to be making a whole lot of decisions with the ball. He needs to be setting screens, rolling to the basket, catching it, quick shots. And he's going to play defense. That's the big thing. He's going to play defense. Teams are not going to get shots at the rim very easily.
Yeah, and like we kind of talked about and kind of harping on now, it's like that's the need for the Dallas Mavericks.
Mm.
So, any notes you have about Dallas's upcoming schedule? I mean, relatively light being Washington and New Orleans, but you're playing a pretty decent Pistons team on Friday, and then
Yeah.
you got a little road trip
Yeah.
from
5 game road
Detroit to
trip to the East
Cleveland
Coast. Yeah.
to yeah,
And I don't even have it
playing
written down here.
Cleveland.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can read
No.
it off real quick.
Yeah.
It's going
Yeah.
to
Read it
be
off.
little 5 game road trip, starting from New Orleans to Detroit to Cleveland to Philly to Boston. So Philly playing a little
Yeah.
bit better, but anytime you go, I mean, to Boston and Cleveland in the same road trip, with the way Detroit's playing better and Philly
Yeah.
as of late, like that's not an
Mhm.
easy time for the
Yeah.
Mavs. So
Yeah. We'll see. Obviously we want to get those games against the Wizards and Pels. Like, not good teams. Like, we need to win those games. We need
right,
those are the games we've been waiting for with our rough schedule right now that we need to take advantage of now. I know Najee Marshall out again tomorrow night. That's like his ninth game of the year with a sickness out, which I think's a little suspect. We can get into that later in the week if he's still sick. Um, but he's been struggling with sickness. We need to pick up these wins. We need to get the team going. I think tomorrow could be a really good Clay game. He's just had limited shot attempts. He hasn't been open because there's not been enough
yeah,
creation really for
yeah,
him.
just looked like a lack of assertiveness from Clay against Boston. I mean, like I said, like we all know, Clay's not a type of guy that's really going to take you off the dribble or be an
Mm-mm.
on-ball creator for himself at all. He's never really been that guy in his career. And with the fully healthy Dallas Mavericks with Luka and Kyrie, he's going to get more than enough looks.
Yeah.
But
He's struggling right now.
yeah,
Every time Luka's been out, he's struggled because obviously we're not relying on him to create his own shot. Like, Spencer's not the
right.
best passer at that secondary ball handler position. Really, no one is. that we have besides Luka is going to get people open looks. People are kind of just like Spencer can beat us, he'll beat us. Hardy wants to beat us, he'll beat us. Um, Definitely going to need a good Clay game, get some confidence going in. Mainly win these against these Pelicans, the Wizards. Obviously, a couple East Coast games would be nice for us to get. Leave. You always want to leave around 500 on your away trips. You want to leave with as many wins as you have losses, and I feel like we can do that. It'll be just after that road trip is when I would hope Luka would be coming back. So after that road trip we survive, we get Luka back, then we're a-okay. But definitely need to start off with some wins against. I think we can go 3-0 this weekend, really, or 3-0 this week if we wanted to. So, or if we
Yeah.
should go 3-0.
If I think if even if y'all only go 3-3 in this next 6 game period, I think that's a
Yeah.
win for y'all.
Mhm.
Um, but it's scary, just looking at the standings, right? I mean, I know it's January, but you look around the Dallas Mavericks and Sacramento is a half game behind y'all at 10.
Yep.
Phoenix is playing better basketball after just trading for a big.
Nick
Um,
Richards is playing well for them. Yeah. I mean,
yeah, just
it's
dropped.
tightening up in the back end right now, for sure. We
Yeah,
need to take advantage of this weaker part of our schedule right here.
for sure.
But let's I feel like that's good about the Mavs. Let's any concerns or thoughts about the Thunder? I know after that game, NBA Twitter is kind of piling on, but I've seen some Thunder fans be nervous. I've seen some Thunder fans not really caring. Obviously they picked up a good road win today. What you feeling about the Thunder?
Yeah, we bounced back. First off, I just want to say an interesting tidbit from our announcing crew today. The Thunder played on championship weekend today.
Hmm.
One of the only times in the NBA you'll ever see only one game on the schedule.
Yep.
Um, just for the team with the best record in the NBA, I just think
Hmm.
that's just an utter marketing and scheduling failure,
Yep.
to be quite honest. And even the announcers in the game said last year we played on championship weekend and Super Bowl Sunday,
Wow.
which for a team that was the number one seed again last year, it's just I
Hmm.
don't know. I think it's a slap in the face, regardless of how good or bad Portland is.
Yeah.
I just think it's ridiculous that we can't market the team with the best record in the
And
NBA.
not only
But that
that, at the same exact time as the most popular game today,
Right. Like,
basically.
there were only like probably only the true sickos like me were watching this Oklahoma City Thunder Portland game. I mean,
Hmm.
there's no way any casual fan was tuning into that because why would you, right?
Right.
It's during the Chiefs and the Bills. Like, what are we
Hmm.
doing?
Yeah.
But besides that, I'm not worried about this team at all, right?
Right.
Still, I'm not going to overreact to a shorthanded Thunder losing to a shorthanded Dallas team at the end of
Hmm.
the day. I think that, anytime a loss happens, especially an emotional loss to a rival like Dallas, there's going to be people that think the sky is falling. And I know both me and you are both, perennially on Twitter. And so we see like the full extent of that, right?
Yep.
But I have no worries about this team. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, the night before Dallas, career high 54 points, getting that monkey off his back,
Yep.
was really
That was great.
nice just to
Yeah, he was
see.
playing. He was great.
Yeah, just was unstoppable in the game, quite frank. It was only a matter of time he's going to do this, right? Had
Hmm.
40 points in through 3 quarters multiple times this year. We
Yeah.
just have been blowing teams out, quite frank. And,
Hmm.
like we touched on before, he's on pace to sit out more fourth quarters than 2016 Steph Curry. So just needed
Right.
a team to just keep it close whenever he had one of those nights. And
Hmm.
it turned out to be Utah.
Yeah.
Um, but let me just read his line real quick. 54 points, 17 for 35 from the field, 3 for 10 from
Yeah.
three, and 17 for 18 from the free throw line. 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 blocks, 3 steals, 3 turnovers. I mean, just an utter domination of a game.
I feel
Um,
like that's kind of like been like the main like you'll see a lot of people rage baiting Thunder fans because Shea's career high wasn't that high as some of these other guys, and he's known as like a scorer. But like anybody who knows basketball, with knowing that a Shea 50-point game was inevitable at some point this season, we were going to see it.
Right.
And I mean, by the he could have gotten 50 probably 20 times in his career already if y'all weren't just blowing teams out.
Right. And I think one of the best parts about Shea's game is that he always just plays within the flow of the game,
Hmm.
and he's going to make the right read, 99% of the time. Granted, he's not the most excellent passer, I would say, in the league, but he makes the right decisions with the ball, right? He's
Right.
not going to force anything up, but he's going to take his looks when they come. And, you know,
Hmm.
as good as he is as drawing contact, the inexperience of Utah just could not keep their hands off him,
Yeah.
and he was unreal all night. Just carried us, against a
Hmm.
Utah team, quite frank, that shouldn't be playing with us, but without Hartenstein and
Hmm.
Chet Holmgren, that's going to happen. Our
Right.
our team is just a little limited right now, due to those guys' absence,
Right.
and even Isaiah Joe not playing hurts
Hmm.
this team really bad. But thankfully, the game I watched today, those guys came back, and
Good hard game
it
today.
looked a lot better, right?
Mm.
There was some ball movement that I saw in the first half that I had not seen in multiple weeks, just
Hmm.
because Hardenstein and Joe, I mean, the chemistry was unreal.
And the
Multiple,
Blazers are a good defensive team. They might not be a good team,
yeah,
but they're good defensively or
yeah.
decent
I'll do a
defensively.
quick point on the Blazers. Uh, Tomani Kamara. Anytime I watch that guy, I'm impressed.
Hmm.
He is one of the best perimeter defenders. If you don't know his name, you need to learn his name, right?
Yep.
This guy is going
And
to be
not a whole lot of
around
people are
for
knowing him. You know what
right.
he's like? He's like a young Dort. Like
He
he
really is.
nobody knew that
This
Dort was a great defender while y'all were tanking, except Thunder fans and like, the occasional person that watched the mat like watched the Thunder play and they're like, "Oh wow,
mhm.
like that guy's obviously like elite defensively." He's literally like he could have that potential.
Yeah, I think he has that potential and possibly even more, right? I mean, being 6'7", 230. I mean,
You couldn't make it
this
in a
game,
lab better for defense.
no, and this guy, 5 for 5 for 3 against the Thunder, 24 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists. I mean,
Hmm.
if he's hitting that corner three, man, I mean, this guy is like gonna. I would say, like, for anybody that hasn't watched this guy, like Herb Jones is the obvious like comparison. I would say, you know,
Hmm.
um, and
He's
being
in that
24
category
years
of
old,
defender. Hmm.
yeah, 24 years old, like he's gonna be around for a long time. Portland hit a hell of a jackpot on the
What was he a first
2023.
rounder?
No, he was a 2023 second round, 52nd pick,
Wow.
52nd pick in the draft. I mean, just a steal. I mean, no other way to put it. I mean, just unreal. Um, but yeah, Portland kept this game close.
Hmm.
They got really good shooting and floor spacing from Kamara and Avdia, and
Hmm.
that really let Scoot Henderson and Anthony Simons have pretty decent games. Anthony struggled from the field, but I mean, Scoot Henderson shot 5 for 11 from three. Looked super confident.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah.
20 points in a lot of his more recent games. Let me pull up his game log real quick. It's like, you know, 3 out of his last 6 games, he's had over 20 points. And so he's kind of
Hmm.
coming into his own a little bit.
Yep.
Anytime you have a young guard come in the NBA, it's always going to look rough at times.
Hmm.
But tonight he had it going. I mean, 5 for 11 from three. Uh, hitting step backs off switches,
Yep.
pretty active driving, setting up for his teammates. Um, one assist on the night, but that doesn't really give him justice just due to the ball movement and initiation and breaking down the defense. I thought he
Hmm.
was solid.
Yeah.
And Portland really got a great first half from Denny Avdia. But at the end of the day, we we were just too much for them with Shea and
Mm,
J-Dub. And that's one thing too that we didn't touch on. J-Dub 30 points against Dallas, 24
mm,
points against Portland. I'm pretty encouraged as of late from his play, really getting to his spots in the mid range. Um, knocking those buckets down. I think it will get to a point where it's automatic, just as Shea. It's just going to take time, right?
right.
Shea's just perfected his craft for longer. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
24 points, 8 assists, 4 rebounds from J Dub, and then obviously your normal Shea game, 30,
Mm,
35 points, and change. So yeah, I'm not worried about this team at all. I still, at the end of the day, think that we're the best team in the NBA.
mm.
We still haven't even been fully healthy with Chet and Hartenstein, and now that Hartenstein is back and Joe is back, I think we can really get it
Mm.
going. I mean, was our only loss in the last 8 games,
Right.
and so
Yeah.
I'm not, I'm not, I'm pretty optimistic about this team.
The
So
only thing that I really took away from the OKC Mavericks game, obviously, like that PJ Washington was still able to do what he does, was like I have never seen Lou Dort quite like he almost took himself out of that game. And it was something it looked like it was something that boiled over from last game in Dallas. Like he looked like he was usually he's locked in defense, hyper focused defensively. He kind of looked like he was out there to kind of, rattle some cages. And it led to him playing probably the worst game I've ever seen Lou Dort play. He was the game worst -20 when he was ejected.
yeah,
Obviously was flopping. He
horrible.
grabbed the landlords. So got ejected for that. But that's going to be a problem if he is taking this if he's trying to rattle cages like that in the playoffs instead of really do what he does, which is take Luca and make him super uncomfortable. That could be some issues in the future.
Yeah, just one of those things I'm not really worried about, right? I think it's just a regular season thing. But yeah, you're right. Horrible game from Lador. At the end of the game in Dallas, they had to hold him back at the end of the game because he wanted to either say words or use his hands against PJ Washington, quite frankly. And our coaching
And
staff
he's
had to hold
usually
him
a
back.
quiet guy. Like,
Yeah, I've never seen him worked up like that. Um, you know, with the gaffer thing, with my Thunder glasses, could have been an accident, but I'm
he's
sitting
done
next
it
to my
twice.
fiance.
He did it to both
I'm,
Mavs. He did it to the Lively last year in the playoffs.
but I'm sitting next to my fiance, and she goes, "Well, I definitely didn't look like it, wasn't intentional." So it's like, one of those things. Um, but yeah, I think Blue Dort is a guy that's gonna turn it on in the playoffs. For
Mhm.
some reason, just does not play or has not played well against Dallas, quite frankly. So
Weird
moving
outlier
forward,
game for him. He's been so good this year. So yeah.
yeah. Uh, moving forward, little trip to Sacramento and Golden State. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm mistaken. We're going to Golden State and then playing Sacramento and Milwaukee as our next 3 games. Um, Super excited for all 3 of those games, quite frankly.
Yeah.
I think Dallas fans should be cheering
We're
for
rooting.
us to play
We're rooting for you.
to beat Golden State. Y'all really need us to get that monkey off your back. And same thing with Sacramento.
Mhm.
So that'll be fun. And I'm super excited for this next week's game against Milwaukee,
Yeah.
just to
That
get
rematch.
that
Yeah.
revenge and see Giannis, man. It should be a good one. So,
Mhm.
but yeah, quiet week really from Oklahoma City. Obviously, you have the Dallas loss and Dallas being the team that has gotten the best of us this year. But really, at the end of the day, we're not going to take too much without games with Chet Holmgren or Hart on the floor. Just got to get those guys back, and
Mhm.
hopefully Chet's going to be reevaluated here soon, and hopefully we'll get him back out there and hooping
Yep.
because he's a big part of what we do.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, with that being said, we can kind of segment, or I'm sorry, move on to our next segment, which is sort of the All-Star segment that we came up with.
This one's
Um,
fun. This is
yeah,
genuinely like, yeah, I don't know where to go with this.
I'm looking forward to this. So again, this is the idea is that the other day All-Star starters were announced. The way that format works is it's a 50% fan vote, 25% coach vote, and 25% player vote. And
Mhm.
so a little bit of a popularity contest element to it. You don't take as much about the starters necessarily, but
Well, we can all
the
agree
way that
like LaMelo got robbed as a starter, and we can say like
uh,
Steph Curry doesn't deserve to be a starter. We can throw that
yeah,
out there just real quick.
for those that don't know, I'm just going to name off the starters, right? In the Eastern Conference, you have Jalen
We'll show
Brunson
it on
of
the
the
screen
Knicks.
too.
Yeah, Jalen Brunson of the Knicks, Donovan Mitchell of the Cavs, Karl Anthony Towns of the Knicks, Giannis Antetokounmpo of the Bucks, and Jason Tatum of the Celtics. Then in the Western Conference, you have Steph Curry of the Warriors, SGA of the Thunder, LeBron James of the Lakers, Kevin Durant of the Suns, and Nikola Jokic of the Denver Nuggets. Um, yeah, you kind of touched on it a little bit. Any snubs or guys that should be upset about what happened here?
This is gonna be a hot take. Steph only got in because of the Stephen Curry has had one of his worst seasons to date. Like this year, he's averaging 21 or 22 points a game on the 11th seed right now, and
Hmm.
like there's no reason why he should be a starter over, just to throw a couple names out there before we go too deep, like De'Aaron Fox should be starting. Ant should be starting over him. Honestly, you can make a case for Harden, John Morant, like Jalen Green. You can make cases for a lot of players starting over him who actually are more deserving.
Yeah,
Um,
with how deep the Western guards are, I mean, there's 10 guys maybe that would have a case over Steph. You really just see Steph just dominate the fan vote, right? It's Steph
he's number
Curry's one
one
of
in
the most
jersey
beloved
sales.
beloved guys,
Hmm.
still no matter how, even
The
at
most
36
loved.
years old,
Yeah.
right? Um, but yeah, you touched on it. One of the worst years we've seen for him, quite frankly, which is surprising to me because it doesn't seem like his game should fall off a cliff like this. But 22.3 points a game, 6.4 assists, 4.8 rebounds, a steal and half a block, three turnovers game, like um, just not good, right? For this
Yep.
Warriors team, that's quite frankly just been struggling and not very good this year.
Hmm.
So yeah, pretty surprised. I would say it really should have been Anthony Edwards' spot.
Hmm.
Anthony Edwards putting up way better numbers and leading a better team with debatably less help, right? Um,
And
I
this is
mean,
why we talk about the NBA marketing. It's like, yes, they want to market, Steph Curry and LeBron, but like also like not giving these young guys you know, the starting spot and letting like I would I love Steph Curry. Steph Curry is so fun to watch, but like Anthony Edwards and All-Star is like must see, and on the All-Star team is like must see TV. Like that's just good product. So it's like I
yeah,
don't know.
and yeah, the marketing point is a great point, right? If you really want to be able to have your product survive and move on from the LeBron Steph era, like prop these guys up, especially when they deserve it. Like better team, better numbers.
Throw Steph
Not
on the
really.
reserve team. Like give him he's gonna make it let him play, obviously. Like
Yeah,
he doesn't even deserve like if we're being quite frank, he doesn't deserve a reserve spot like over some of these guys.
you could definitely argue that, right?
Throw him on the
Um,
reserves. Like just give the young guys that deserve it the starting spot. We want to see them.
right. I agree. Um, yeah, in the East, I think LaMelo not starting is sort of the same thing, right? Jalen Brunson and Donovan Mitchell just playing in bigger markets, and you know, um, at the end of the day, I think that's what it came down to, just being a bigger name.
Yeah.
LaMelo missed a starting spot by three media votes. He ended up being sixth in the media vote. it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But at the end of the day, the starters are the starters, and both LaMelo and Ant will still be all stars, and so it's not the most important thing in the world, but it's just kind
Right.
of like a respect thing.
Mm.
That would have been nice for those individuals, and something
Yeah.
that would have made me mad as a Charlotte or a Minnesota fan for sure.
Charlotte hasn't had much
Um,
wins. They need this one. They needed it.
yeah, yeah. They haven't had a guy having this sort of season in Charlotte, quite frankly, in a
Kimba. Since
long
Kimba.
time. Yeah, and
Kimba had a
yeah,
couple good
it's
ones for them, but like as you're like it, it's again media. What do you want? Like Jalen Brunson's going to get the views, obviously. Like there's going to be a whole lot of people upset in New York, but like LaMelo's going to introduce like you're going to introduce a new young player that's so fun to watch to a bunch of different people that have not seen him play.
right.
Like quite
I
quite
mean,
fra- quite quite frankly, you know?
who doesn't want LaMelo to be jacking up one-legged threes in the All-Star game? I mean, come on. I mean, that's what more do you want?
No, we
He
want to
leads the
see
NBA
Jalen
and
Brunson two step into like bury his way with his big old head into the lane and shoot post fades. That's what we want to see in the All-Star game. Like
yeah, Jalen Brunson in
market your
his
product,
post
NBA.
game. Yeah. So, anyways, we could sort of go into kind of our picks in the reserves, and that's what we're gonna talk about the meat of this segment, and that's kind of the fun part, right? We kind of get to dig through the guys, that are kind of borderline, and just kind of give our takes and what we think. So,
Are we doing
um,
people that most deserve it or people we think will get it?
I would just go with most deserved, I think.
Okay. All right.
That's the way I'm going to do it. And if it were up to me, who I would vote for.
Right.
So let's start. Actually, for those that don't know, the NBA All Star Game reserves are selected by just the coaches. So
Mhm.
no media vote. Thank the Lord, and no fan vote gets factored into this. So two backcourt players, three front court players, two wild cards in every conference. So yeah, who do you have as your Western guys?
So, Western, obviously, like going Western first. Western's the hardest one for me personally.
Hmm.
Obviously, we know it's the best basketball conference in the world. Um, Genuinely, we can just go ahead and just both agree that Wimby is going to be on the team. So we can just cross his name off. He's averaging 24.6 points a game, 11 rebounds, 4 assists in his second year. That's ridiculous. Very
Yeah,
terrified of
no,
him. Happy we don't get to talk about the Spurs very often because they're not that good, thankfully,
yeah,
but they're coming.
no debate here from me. Victor, quite frankly, could have been a starter. He it might be the second best center in the NBA.
Mhm.
Respecting Nikola Jokic, of course, but yeah, Victor Wembanyama, he has a first team All NBA case. To be quite frank, like, um, it's scary the ceiling that he has, and
Mhm.
yeah, All Star lock for sure.
Yep.
Averaging, I think, 4 blocks a game in your second year.
Right. And
Just wild,
so
just wild.
we can cross him off the list. We don't need to talk about him much. I feel like another player that we can automatically cross off the list that we know is going to get there. AD's been quietly putting up a great one of his probably better seasons as of late, putting up a great stat line, 25.6 points per game, 11.8 rebounds, three looks like yeah, 3 assists a game. He's thriving in that JJ Redick offense, and I feel like this year we're kind of really seeing them play through AD. A lot of two-man game with him all the time. Him and Austin and him and LeBron. Obviously, he's shooting it at a high clip. Um, yeah, like we don't need to really discuss him more. He's pretty much a lock.
Hmm.
Um, and then I
Yeah.
feel like yeah,
I think Anthony Davis, been the best player on the Lakers, to be quite frank. leading them to their best seed they've had since their championship run. No debate from here again on Anthony Edwards. Or I'm sorry, Anthony Davis.
Mhm.
Um, Another guy I think should be no question that we touched on before about his year, Anthony Edwards.
Mhm.
Um,
Yep.
you know, just carrying a Wolves team with limited spacing, leading the NBA in threes.
Mhm.
Just passed Karl Anthony Towns the other night for most threes in T Wolves history. But 26.2
Yep.
points a game, 5.8 rebounds, 4.3 assists. Um, I think what's most impressed me about Anthony Edwards this year is just his decision making, right? The
Yeah.
other night we were watching Timberwolves Nuggets, and he was just dissecting them and making the early read, right? Seeing,
Mhm.
help from spaces and just making the quick pass to the corner and just little things like that. I think that he wasn't doing
Think he's
before, and
leading the
that's
league
really
in three
elevated
pointers
his
made this
game.
year too. Yeah, no,
Yeah, yeah,
you're 100% correct. Yeah.
yeah. Mentioned that, leading the NBA in 3 pointers made, really ticked up his volume there. Um,
Yeah.
I think he's attempting like something ridiculous, like over 10 3 pointers a game this year. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, let me think. 9.8, excuse me.
Which is crazy.
9 point, yeah, and shooting that at a 42.5% clip. I mean, he's really picked up the spacing that you saw depart from Minnesota whenever Cat left New York. And so
Mhm.
I think no question, Anthony Edwards, Victor Wembanyama, Anthony Davis, three guys that are locks.
Locks,
But
yeah.
from there in the West, it gets pretty dicey.
Mhm.
Um, who'd you have as the other guard selection next to Anthony Edwards?
So, obviously I'd like to say Luka Doncic, but I don't think he's going to be voted in. One, because he's a horrible product to put on the floor during an all-star game. Two, he just hasn't played enough games. So I don't think Adam Silver or anybody in the league is going to be too disappointed on him not showing up. And I quite frankly, I don't think he's going to be too disappointed to not show up to that mandatory all-star game.
Right.
I think personally, that Devin Booker is a lock at the other guard. I think those are the top two guards. I think Devin Booker is a lock. 25.7 points per game, 3.9 rebounds, 6.6 assists. He was struggling a little bit towards, I think it was the midway point of the year. I follow some Suns fans. Seeing I was kind of stat watching him a little bit. Obviously, I watched a lot of Suns games because they're a team that the Mavs like to keep a close eye on. Really picking it up. Obviously, he's a great fit. Whenever they move Brad Beal to the bench, really, he's been thriving a lot more, and he really found his shot as of late. Suns have just found it as of late. They're a lot better. So I think he's a lock at that second guard
Yeah.
spot.
Um, yeah, I would agree. Like you said, little bit of a dip in production in that month of December.
Hmm.
Was under 40% field goal percentage there. I remember specifically a game against Oklahoma City where he did not score in the first half due to the Dortch chamber.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, carried this team right in offensively. Uh, there's not a lot of creation on this team, right?
Hmm.
Um, and he has the burden of creating a lot of shots, to be quite frank, especially with Kevin Durant missing a lot of time and Bradley Beal missing time and also not being up to normal Bradley Beal standards.
Hmm.
Um, just the burden that he's carried is impressive.
Yeah.
Um, and with averaging, those raw numbers, it's tough to leave him off, especially just with what we know of who D Book is and the quality of player. Yeah, I would agree.
People
D
forget
Book
he's led a
is
team to the finals. Like D-Book's a legitimate player, and he
right,
deserves to be at that second spot this year.
right. But there's a lot of debate for other guys, right?
Hmm.
Kyrie having a great year for Dallas, 24 and a half points per game, four and a half
Yeah.
rebounds, 4.9 assists, like having a great year.
Hmm.
John Morant's always going to be a name that's up there. James Harden having a great year in the Clippers.
Yep.
Um, Jalen Green, especially
Hmm.
as of late, really having a good year.
Yeah.
And the one that's going to be tough for some people to leave off is going to be Darren Fox, right?
Yep.
De'Aaron Fox
It's
having
hard to leave
another solid year.
Both those Kings players off, to be honest with you. One of them's going to get in. It's either Sabonis or Fox. One of them's going to be an all-star.
Yeah. Um,
Fox's
yeah.
production has
For
dipped a bit in the last 10 games. I think his points per game has dropped like almost 6 points over the last 10 games. He's been scoring less, but they've been winning more. He's been excellent playmaking. Obviously absurd 25.4 points per game, 5.1 rebounds, 6.2 assists. Like the dude's a stud. We've known this for a while. He looked unhappy there. There was kind of some rumors that he'd be, a Houston Rocket or, I want him to go out east somewhere. But yeah, I think that at least for me, I think that he's going to make the All-Star team
yeah,
personally, or he deserves
he
it.
might make it, but to me, I don't have him on my list actually.
Hmm.
Ever since you know, their coaching situation has kind of settled down and Max Christie's taken over. I'm sorry, not Max Christie.
Doug Christie.
Um, yeah, Doug Christie. Excuse me. He's had a really rough January.
Mm,
Only 20 points per game and 39% field goal percentage. Like Malik
mhm.
Monk has really taken over as their more primary ball handler, to be quite frank, like, and just
He's been
been
having a
way more
great
efficient.
Jan. Yeah.
Um, and huge uptick for assists for Malik Monk. And so for me, I have Domantas Sabonis making it in one of my wild card positions.
Yeah.
Um, and to be quite frank, I just think he's more valuable to the Kings right now. Just putting up another great year, filling
Leading
up
the
the
league
stat
in
sheet
rebounding.
filling up the stat sheet like he always does. Triple double threat on any night. 21 points, 14.4 rebounds, 6.2 assists. I mean,
Yep.
Domantas Sabonis is,
Stud.
the second best hub in the league behind Jokic, right?
Hmm.
Um, just makes the right decisions. Elite in the low post, and just having a great year. And
Hmm.
I think especially with Fox's recent downturn, I'm going to give the nod to Sabonis. What do you
Yeah.
think about that?
And again, I can't. It's so tight in the West. Like genuinely how I think that it's going to happen is like there's so many like great forwards and guards like we have Ja and JJJ and Fox and Sabonis and Sengun and Jalen Green that they're just going to give it to one of those dudes on every team. Like I could see that happening for real. So it's a toss up coin flip for me with De'Aaron Fox and Sabonis. Obviously, he'd struggled in January. I think I mentioned the last 10 games have been pretty rough for him, but De'Aaron Fox was playing like one of the best point guards in the NBA at the beginning of the year. So recency bias may play a factor in it, but who knows? You you can't every single person here has an argument and I can't disagree with it. So it's just going to
Right,
come down to what the coaches think. So
right. Yeah, like you said, those duos are tough to narrow down. The
like the
Jalen
Rockets and
Green,
Grizzlies are the second
Sengun,
and third team in the West, like they're going to have at least one All-Star on their teams.
right, and it just goes to say, how much these coaches value team success or
Mm,
individual numbers. And at the end of the day, I think I'm going to go with numbers and quality of player over that. Um, but in my third forward spot in the West, so right now I have Ant, Booker, Wembanyama, Anthony Davis, Sabonis. I have two spots left, a forward spot and a wild card spot. In my third forward spot or big spot, my front court spot, I'm going to go with Jalen Williams. Um,
yeah, I think he'll
and
get in.
just as a Thunder fan, watching him night in, night out, I think he deserves it. Uh, 21 points a game, 5.6 rebounds, 5.2 assists, uptick on efficiency, really just guarding 1 through 5 on both ends.
Mhm.
He is so important to our winning right now, even if you don't even feel it on the stat sheet because you just feel his impact. Um, and he's having a career year, and nearly every category. And
Yep.
so I don't I think it would be tough if for him to be left off just due to that. Um, and the numbers are pretty comparable to his competition in the front court spot, right?
Mhm.
Um, Compared to Sengun and Sabonis and Jaren Jackson Jr., um, there's not much difference between the four numbers wise. And so I'm going to lean towards the guy that's doing more on the defensive end.
Yep.
And I think that's Jada.
I think
And so,
J-Dub
yeah.
gets it too. Yeah, I 100% agree with you. J-Dub's been he's kind of taken a little bit of a like he's taken a mini leap this year. Not a huge leap stat wise, but he's taken a mini leap in when you could just see he has that confidence when he goes out and plays now. He's lethal mid range. I mean, we know he loves to go left to his left hand. But
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, you guys, he barely plays fourth quarters at this point because y'all just have been smacking teams so much. Like he's obviously been the second best player on the Thunder this year, and he's been putting up stats like that. So and he's been putting up great stats. And as how dominant the Thunder are, he's going to be an all-star, and I have him as a lock on here. Or I have him picked on here for me too. So definitely going to give Jade up that respect this year that he deserves with that first all-star appearance. So hopefully first
Yeah.
of many for him.
Yeah. Again, I can't speak enough to how valuable he is to us, especially in those time periods where we've played without Hart and Chet. I mean,
Mm,
really, just his size and his versatility has been essential to keeping us afloat. Um, I mean, I envision like the Clippers game of him trying to guard Zubac all night. Like, it's
yep.
those guys don't come around too often in the NBA, and
Mm,
I think he's having a special year that deserves recognition. So,
yeah.
um,
Yeah.
who are you rounding out your Western Conference All Stars with?
So right now I have D-Book, Ant Wimby, Fox, AD, J-Dub. So what does that give me? That gives me I have six right now. How many? There's seven, right? It's seven
Hmm.
reserves.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, I struggle with this. I think because of the uncertainty around we kind of don't really know that who Houston's best player is. That I think that John Morant or JJJ would get that next spot for me personally, and I think John Morant is going to get it just because of how coaches hold him, how high they hold him in regard, and he's been injured a lot this year so far. He's been playing as of late. The Grizzlies have obviously made a really good run, really deep, fun team to watch if you just love watching basketball. Super deep team, super great defensively, and obviously Jaws the spearhead of that team. So I'm gonna pick Jaws the last spot of who I think most deserves it. He's the best player on the second best team in the West. So third best team maybe. Are they third or second? They're third now. I can't.
I believe they're
They
third.
yeah. Third best team in the
Uh,
West. So
yeah. Um, like I said, hard to fault you for that. Um, but at the end of the day, here I'm going to go with Sengun.
mm,
Um, Sengun, I think averaging a double double every night, 19.2 points, 10.5 rebounds, and 5 assists. I mean, just just been so consistent throughout the year. Had a little
mm,
bit of early troubles staying in the games in fourth quarters,
yeah.
just due to his defense.
Mm,
But really, since then, he's having the best defensive year that he's ever had.
yeah.
Really been a force for the Rockets and a hub for them. The Rockets have done a great job of surrounding as much defense and shooting as they can around him. To be quite frank, and it's working so far.
Mm,
30 and 14 on the year. Hard to see why that team shouldn't get one All Star.
yeah.
Um, and like you said, there's a debate between Jalen Green and Sengun, but I'm gonna give the nod to Sengun just for the consistent output he's
Yeah.
had all year.
Right.
So yeah, and that's gonna round out the West. Moving on to the East, Um, I think there's a couple guys that we can just say, hands down, these guys are all stars, no matter
Mhm.
what. I think
Yeah.
we touched on him earlier. LaMelo Ball,
Yep.
just having a monster year in Charlotte, putting up crazy numbers. Um,
Mhm.
Trey Young having arguably his best season of all time, or that he's
Yeah.
ever had. Um, and I think Jaylen Brown, also a
Mhm.
guy, obviously coming off Finals MVP. Um, yeah, those are the guys I have
Yeah.
as locks.
Yeah. I don't even think we need to talk very much more about him. I mean, obviously, all three of those dudes are having great seasons. Trey Young's team has kind of been exceeding expectations. I feel like for a lot of us at the beginning of the year, we kind of thought like DeJounte Murray leaving was them kind of, we thought the Hawks fire sale was going to happen, but it really hasn't. They've stayed pat, and he's had a really good year for them. They're a pretty fun team to watch too. They're surrounding him with some elite defenders around him, so it's made him look a lot better on both ends of the floor. Having Dyson Daniels sure makes life easier as a Hawks fan watching Trey Young defense. So
Yeah,
um,
perfect backcourt partner for Trey, right? Could not
mhm.
think of a better guy to be right next to him. Um, Obviously they have forwards, massive forward size as well, with DeAndre Hunter, Zachary Ricochet,
Yeah.
Jalen Johnson. Jalen Johnson, by the way, having a monster year.
Jalen
Just
Johnson's so good. I mean, you
dude,
and me just sit here and just salivate over the Hawks forwards positions right now. We
yeah,
wanted that fire sale to start more than anybody.
yeah.
But yeah,
And they're having, a playing year in the East, which is nothing to brag about, but definitely not something that everybody saw coming. They've
you
kind
can,
of
yeah.
fallen off as of late,
Mhm.
4-6 in their last 10, but I think
Yeah,
Trey Young's
they
still
deserve
having a
it.
great year.
Yeah, they
Um,
deserve it. So
with
that's three. We got the three.
mhm.
Um,
With another forward spot, obviously I have JB there right now, but I'm gonna go with Evan Mobley.
mhm.
Evan Mobley, quite frank, has been the best player on the team with the second best record in the NBA right now, um,
Yep.
anchoring a top 10 defense in the NBA, and also like just really picked up his offensive, numbers too.
Don't let
Stretching the
analysts, don't let analysts or anybody fool you from the fact Evan Mobley is the best player on the Cavs.
Yeah,
He's better than
100%.
Donovan Mitchell. That is the best player on the Cavaliers.
Yeah, the value that he brings is irreplaceable. There's not a lot of guys in the NBA that can average 1.5 blocks a game, but also shoot 41% from three on three attempts, right?
Mhm.
Um, Stretching the floor is essential for what Cleveland does based on their double big.
Yep.
And it's really opened up their offense and allowed guys like Darius Garland and Allen, Georges Niang, Dean Wade,
Mhm.
Okoro, all those guys, just being able to play along any lineup due to his spacing that he's added to his game is really just elevated the Cavs, to be quite
Is he
honest.
the best four in, I mean, obviously Giannis. He's second best four in the league, right? Like,
Yeah, it depends how you classify Anthony Davis, I would say.
he's been, I mean,
Um,
yeah. Anthony's,
and
yeah.
Kevin Durant, I would still probably lean above him. Um, yeah, but he's in that conversation, right? And
Mhm.
for a guy that's 23 years old, I mean, uber impressive.
I would have that
And just
conversation, Mobley or Durant. I could make an argument for either. Obviously KD's
yeah,
him, but Mobley's
yeah,
so good defensively. Like you just can't like he's one of those one of one defenders.
yeah. Truly special. His ability to guard anybody in the NBA.
Hmm.
And a guy that any GM would want and would fit in any single system. So
Yep.
can't talk enough about how good he's been.
Hmm.
Um, Another guy that I have in a wild card spot because we already have two guards is going to be Cade Cunningham.
Yeah. Hmm.
I think Cade has just simply been fantastic this year and is finally having that leap that we all knew he was capable of, right? Even
Hmm.
since his Oklahoma State days. I mean, you know, 24.9 points a game, 9.4 assists, 6.5 rebounds, you know,
The
forty
motor
five and
of
a
that
half
team,
percent from field,
the engine.
37% from three. Yeah, just carrying the Detroit Pistons to relevance to be, like to no other way to put it. He is, bar none, the best alpha, 1A guy on that team.
Hmm.
And for Detroit to be looking up in January and be in the sixth spot in the East is incredible. Um,
Hmm.
I think just with them spacing the floor out more, adding
Malik Beasley having a great
Fontecchio,
year.
Malik Beasley, Tim
THJ.
Hardaway,
Yeah.
Tobias Harris. I mean, it's
Yeah.
really just allowed him to come into his own. Obviously, a little bit high in the turnovers. He was
Yeah.
getting some flack for back-to-back 10 turnover games earlier this last week.
Yep.
So that number's a bit high, but for a guard that's as young as he is, just having a great year
Hmm.
nonetheless. 23 years old. I mean, 6'6". I mean, perfect for the modern NBA. I mean, I feel like he's a lock.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I feel like that kind of rounds out the locks for the East for
Hmm.
me, and I feel like it can go in a lot of different directions from here. I know you and me are kind of talking about this, but one of either Paulo or Franz is getting in at this point, and it's probably Franz from a statistic point of view right now. He's been having a really, really, really good year for the Magic. Obviously, the Magic are the only team that I will ever listen to the tears of an injured team as a Mavs fan. The Magic are the only team. The Mavs and
Them are the
Magic have been
Pelicans,
the
right?
most injured, yeah, and the Pelicans. Those are the three most injured teams and I don't think any of them are even close to the Mavs, but they're pretty. It's been pretty down bad for the Magic, but they've stayed afloat, and Franz is back now. But before he got injured, Franz was balling this year. He was really stepping up his three ball. Obviously, we know the type of playmaker and finisher that he is. He's really versatile defensively too. They finally got some shooting around him. Him and Bankera were looking like they were about to lead the Magic to a top three seed in the East. Like that roster is kind of scary looking when it's fully healthy.
Yeah.
And they're getting some role guys, some confidence minutes right now, which is the only bright thing that you can look up at as an injured team, sports fan. But Franz is probably gonna get that all-star spot.
Yeah, he's just having a monster year on a depleted team. Him and Jamal Mosley just carrying the Magic to, a decent seed. Um, Super impressed with this game. I think he stepped it up. I think he gets better every single year.
Hmm.
But yeah, just having a good year. Just being a 6'10" guy that can dribble the ball and play make and do a little bit of everything. Just terrifying what his ceiling next to Paulo is going to be. And yeah, you're right. I think the Magic are scary, and the league is just fortunate enough to that they've been hurt. So
Yeah.
um, that that last Eastern front court spot is kind of tough to fill,
Hmm.
just because I don't think that Joel Embiid deserves it, quite frankly, with the amount of games he played and
Yeah.
with only averaging 14 points a game. I don't feel good about giving that spot to Jared Allen either.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, we have both of us have Lamelo, Trey Young, JB, Mobley, Franz, Cade Cunningham, and then there's one more wild card spot that I chose to give to Damian Lillard. Um,
Yeah.
I think Dame and Giannis, especially as of late, are just tearing it up. I think they're like 8-1 in their last nine. Um, his spacing is essential. Obviously, he's the second best floor spacer in the NBA and has been for a long time behind Steph Curry. Um, but it's always been super close.
Yeah.
What he does and how he opens up the game for Giannis is just unreal. And I still think one of the scariest things that any team can see is a pick and roll with Dame and Giannis, right?
Yeah.
Just almost every single team, no matter what two guys you have guarding that or however many guys you have guarding that, because they need to show more than two guys, honestly, like it just creates matchup nightmares for pretty
Hmm.
much everybody.
Yep.
Um, and Dame is having a pretty decent year. I mean, let me check the numbers real quick.
He
25.1
he
points a
definitely was
game,
higher.
7.2
Yeah,
assists,
he
like 4.5 rebounds. Like I I feel good about giving him that spot.
Yeah, Dame struggled last year. I know it kind of wasn't it was talked about a little bit. Going through a divorce last year, I'm pretty sure had some personal issues. Actually, his trainer is like well, my college's alumni, so he came and talked to us, and Dame obviously had some personal issues he was going through, and just told the media, I think, that he just didn't want to get in the gym, didn't put up reps last year, and I think it was pretty obvious that he had a pretty down year for what we expect from him. Looks like he got after it this year in the offseason and came back, and we're kind of seeing, old Dame putting up good numbers, and obviously like just couldn't have picked a better or couldn't have picked a better partner next to Giannis when it comes to that floor spacing. So Damian Lillard definitely deserves an all-star spot this year. We're gonna hopefully we can see him and Giannis healthy in the playoffs, because I think we've all been waiting to see that with them too. So
Yeah, I'm super excited to see how the Eastern Conference shakes out this year. I think there's some dark horses all over the place, but at the end of the day, it's still pretty top heavy with Cleveland, Boston, New York, and Milwaukee, and I can't wait to see that on the biggest
mhm.
stage.
Yep.
But yeah, so that's gonna wrap up our East. Honorable mentions to some guys who I think just narrowly missed the cut. Tyler Hero having a great year, Tyrese
Yep.
Maxey having a great year, and Darius
Yeah.
Garland. Three guys that super hard to leave off this list, but All Star is always going to have some tough choices, and that's just kind of how the cookie crumbled for us. So,
Hmm. Yep.
um, but that sort of wraps up that segment, and we can kind of move on to our picks of the early next week.
Yeah.
And yeah, what do you got for us, Caden?
Yeah, so obviously, this last week, I think we're gonna put our stats up, and we're gonna just keep adding to it and see how good we get for the rest of the regular season. Only 3 games right now. Obviously, like spreads haven't come out for Wednesday because injury reports and things like that. I think I went 3-2 and then 4-1 on money line. So, and this is picking against the spread, so pretty difficult to do. Um, and then I think Ethan had some pretty good numbers against the spread too. So first, we only have 3 games. These are, I think this video is going to get posted tomorrow, so these are going to be tonight's games. And that's Houston at Boston. I think we're all pretty excited for this one. Boston is favored by 6.5 points. And I looked at the injury log, and Horford and D White were game time decisions. Both of them played against Dallas. I don't see any reason for them to sit out against the Rockets, but Rockets obviously. Amon Thompson been balling for them lately. Celtics been struggling a little bit. Obviously, they got, I know, a pretty big win over the depleted Mavs, but we've seen them been struggling a little bit as of late. So it'll be an interesting one. This one's kind of hard to pick. So what do you have to think about it?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Uh, Houston coming off back-to-back wins versus Cleveland.
Yeah,
Um,
well,
you know, they've been putting together some really consistent, good basketball. Even when they're
mhm.
losing, they're not really getting blown out. Um, unless it's to Boston. Um, just having a great year. Really consistent production from their whole roster. Um, like Jalen Green and Sengun have both been excellent leaders for that team. And with that, I'm going to go Houston money line and Houston spread. I think.
Wow.
I
Yeah.
think that Boston is kind of looked rough recently. Jason Tatum just has looked kind of going through a rough stretch here. They just got destroyed by the Lakers the last time they
hmm
played. So yeah, I'm gonna go with the young guys.
Yeah. Yeah. Houston's one of those teams that they're just built for the regular season. Super deep, super young. Um, they play with energy every night. They have those energy guys, those Dylan Brooks. I mean, Amon Thompson's uh, energy on the court every night is ridiculous. But I think Boston's going to get up for this game. They got up for the Mavs, obviously. Mavs very depleted. Put the beat down on the Mavs. Um, yeah, I think I'm going to take Boston money line, but I'm taking Houston to cover the spread. So I think Boston will step it up. Obviously, if D White and Horford aren't playing, then probably hit that Houston money line. But I know Jabari Smith isn't playing. I think we both already knew that. But yeah, I could see I think Boston's gonna make a statement tomorrow at home or tonight.
Yeah, Boston is a great team. No denying the defending champs. So
hmm
no, you're gonna get no flack from me. But
All
yeah,
right.
next game gonna
Yeah.
be Memphis and New York. New York's
At New
favored
York
by
in the Garden or in Madison.
yep. New York favored by 3.5. What do you got on the injury report on that one?
So Santi Aldama's game time decision. Marcus Smart's out. And then it looks like Josh Hart's game time decision. Mitchell Robinson out. For the Knicks. Those are the only really meaningful ones. Yeah. So I think
New
personally,
York fully healthy.
pretty much they have some like I think Jericho Sims was on there. Pretty much the only main rotation guy. I think Vince. Is it Vince Williams on the Grizzlies is also out, but it's it's pretty. I mean, the stars are going to be playing. Almost all the role players are going to be playing as of right now. So Uh, definitely going to be interesting. I personally, the Knicks are probably the weirdest team in the NBA to me. Um, very, very dominant against bad teams. Obviously, can score a ton of points. Cat's having probably the best season of his career right now. Jalen Brunson obviously doing what he does, but they play. They are not very good against winning teams, against really good teams. And we've seen that throughout like I think the Mavs have beat them pretty badly this year. Obviously, the Celtics and then the Thunder have just absolutely destroyed that. I don't know. I don't trust the Knicks in close games against winning teams. I don't trust the Knicks in games against winning teams in general, especially it seems like the Grizzlies that's going to be able to guard them pretty well. They're a pretty offensive team. So I'm going to pick
Yeah,
the Grizzlies money line and covering the spread.
yeah. The New York Knicks 12 and 11 against teams above 500, right? So
hmm
when they face that elite competition, they've kind of struggled. Um, Memphis, on the other hand, has had a great year. I like you touched on it earlier. I love their depth. Um, Solid production out of Zach Edey, hitting corner threes, being that enforcer, rebounder
hmm
that
Rook,
is good
slam
looks.
dunk, home run on the rookies this year for them. Jalen Wells has been great too.
Jalen Wells is arguably the rookie of the year up to this point.
hmm
You're getting solid production out of Scottie Pippen Jr.,
Yep.
Santi Aldama, um, Brandon Clark,
hmm
um,
Desmond Bain
tons of
hasn't even been
studs.
having a great year, but they've still been dominant.
Yeah, I mean this roster's loaded, right? They got a really good game out of Luke Kennard last week. John Conchar solid, Jake LaRavia is solid. I mean, they're just a really well built, solid team and franchise. Um, but I'm gonna go. I think I'm gonna go New York money line, Memphis spread here. I think
Okay.
it's gonna be a close one, and yeah, that's what I'm going with.
Yeah. 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 Memphis is one of those teams that's just, again, like the Rockets. They're built for the regular season. Bunch of young guys. They have energy every game. You can have one or two guys out. There's going to be other guys that are hungry for opportunities. Like they're just
Yeah,
built for the regular
um,
season. They're gonna go. They're
well
not gonna be afraid to
coached.
go into Madison Square Garden and play those guys. So
No,
I could definitely
and
see
I
it being a
think
really close game tomorrow
yeah,
or
guys
tonight.
like John Morant relish that moment, right? To play at
Hmm.
MSG, their one time they get to play there this year,
Yep.
going to be a great one. So,
Hmm.
what do
Yeah.
you have for our next matchup?
So the next matchup is going to be the late game. It's going to be this one's actually an interesting one. Clippers and Phoenix at Phoenix. So Clippers are favored by 1.5. Um, Very interesting matchup for me. These are two kind of I feel like these are two tier three Western Conference teams. They're not quite at Houston and Memphis's level, and they're definitely not at like a healthy Mavs, OKC, Denver level of team. Um, but they're kind of those tier three teams where it's like, man, they don't you don't feel like it's going to be easy if you see them in the playoffs, but you definitely feel like you're going to beat them. So the injuries on this one, weird injuries too. Both these teams' best defenders are out. So Chris Dunn's out for the Clippers, and then uh, both Dunns are out. So I think it's Ryan Dunn for
Yeah,
the Phoenix, and he's been another great rookie for them. One of the weirdest rookies, like shot like 20% from three in college, came to the NBA and is just now a 3-and-D guy. Like great, he's shooting what like I think he's shooting around 30, high 30s or mid 30s from three this year. He's been really really good for them. Really good defender, lengthy defender. They're gonna miss
yeah,
not
super
having him tomorrow
super
or tonight.
impressed whenever since they've moved him into the starting lineup. I mean, shooting, I think. Let's see. I guess it's only 31% from three. He's really fallen off, but started
He's
October super
still
hot.
he's still taking it with
Um,
confidence when I watch him play.
yeah, and that's what he needs to do, right? To be able to alleviate that pressure off the Phoenix Stars. I've really liked the way Phoenix has looked since they traded for Nick Richards.
Dominant,
They were
averaging a double double
probably,
with Phoenix right now.
yeah, almost had a 2020 game the other night. Phoenix had the worst centers in the NBA, to be quite frank, before this move, and they didn't give up much to get Nick Richards. So,
Mhm.
yeah, uh, with only sending out Josh Kogi, great move from Phoenix. I'm going to go Phoenix money line and spread here. I like the way they've
Yeah,
been playing recently, and I like the game being in the Valley.
yeah, yeah. That's definitely going to play a factor. Um, a team that we kind of haven't touched on is Kawhi returning to the Clippers and how they've been looking with him. Kawhi's actually been playing pretty well. I know we haven't talked about the Clippers a lot, but personally, and this isn't even me talking as a salty Mavs fan, Kawhi is putting up pretty decent stats. He's not getting the separation that he got in his, even early Clipper days. Um, I can't tell if it's rust. I can't tell if he didn't look like he was getting much separation in our playoff series last year when in the games he was playing. I know he was hurt, but um some questions out of the Clippers camp from that because you can see it like when he plays he just can't he doesn't there's sometimes he can't even get his jump shot off against pretty good lengthy defenders, which we never saw from him, so that's something to keep your eye on if you're watching the Clippers. Harden's been playing the best ball for him since early Houston or since Houston days. um they're kind of a machine, the Clippers. They're kind of a regular season machine. So when they get Zubac and when they get Harden, um, they're gonna guard really well. And if Harden's hitting and Harden's making plays, they're going to beat you. Quite frankly, offense has always been their issue. I'm going to choose Phoenix covering, or I'm going to choose the Clippers covering the spread and money line, obviously, tomorrow or tonight.
Yeah. Um, can't fault you at all. I think that'll be a close one. So
Hmm. That one's going to, yeah.
yeah, and I like the way the Clippers play. Um, Still to be seen, kind of what Kawhi is going to look like when he kind of shakes out that rust a little bit and gets couple more games under his
Hmm.
belt. But I mean, they just play good team basketball, and I have the highest respect for Ty Lue and
Yeah.
their coaching staff. I think is
Jeff Van
arguably the
Gundy.
best in the NBA.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's always going to squeeze the most out of those teams, no matter what. Um, which is unfortunate because we have their first round pick, but it is what it is. Um, so,
Yep.
anyways, I think this was a great pod, and thank you all for tuning in to another episode
Yeah.
of the Basketball Buddies.
Yeah. Yeah. Sweet.